I could talk to this. There's been questions about length of pull. This doesn't really have an adjustable length of pull, but really what I like to set it to is that you can manipulate the fire controls and run the bolt without having your elbow move. So I'm gonna rebuild this position. I got my bridge, I'm on, and I'm gonna do my bump test. All right, so I'm good. Let's see what happens. And that's it. We have 11 shots recorded on the chronograph, so one of them was missed. I think that's interesting to note because I wasn't going terribly fast, but I was trying to maintain the fundamentals. I was aware of my elbow moving. I don't shoot this rifle a lot, and the length of pull is such that I needed my elbow a little bit farther forward, but then my trigger hand isn't in the exact right spot. Because my thumb hits the cheek piece here. So I'm gonna have to Dremel this. I mean, it works, but if we do that standard length of pull test, my finger's forward at the magazine. So you could see that the traditional sense of having your trigger finger at the trigger, if I do this, my trigger finger at 90 degrees is forward of the whole trigger guard, and that makes that a little bit short for me. I could still shoot it, but I would have to modify my technique a little bit if I was going to be shooting this a lot, and I certainly wouldn't go to competition without ironing out those details. Let's go see the paper. We can see here that these are those 12 shots, and that group, you know, end to end is less than 2/10 because that's the size of this orange circle. So those 12 shots taken here are in a pretty nice little hole. It didn't affect my fundamentals, but the windage was off, and we messed with the windage, we messed with the elevation, and whether or not I had it click when I loosened it or overcorrected, we're going to diagnose this next on these targets of how to get a zero, but we're getting into that zero and we're getting familiar with the equipment. I think that's really important. You can see here the 12 shots that we took under higher cadence that the chronograph missed one of, and the shift, and these are 1/10 intervals here at 100 yards, so you can see that it's exactly 2/10 from center. So we moved it 2/10 over, and it's less than a tenth above it, so I'm not going to fix that. What I'm concerned about now is windage, and really you want the windage to be dialed, the elevation being slightly off. You can track it and you can set the angle of fire. You could do tricks with a Kestrel or note your dope at distances because it's not always exactly 100 yards. If it's a little high, then my zero would be short of 100. If it's half a tenth, because the bullet's climbing to that 0 point where it crosses the crosshair. But I do want that windage perfect because I'm going to interpret where the bullet lands downrange as wind, as long as I don't have positional effects. And my positional consistency, as you can see here with prone, the consistency is pretty good. If I go from one position to the other, it should be pretty good. We're going to test that and see it. But once that's the case, then anything I see downrange can be interpreted as wind if you can measure on the ruler and you don't have that deviation on your zero. So you got to make sure the zero is good, or what you see downrange could be multiple things, and you don't want it to be multiple things. You want to be able to say, oh, that's the wind, I'm going to correct.